I thank everybody for coming in, for some conversation. It's a lively mic. So, what inspired you? We're looking for a glass of water and couldn't find one.
I'm Roland Warren. I'm the director of the film, producer, cinematographer, and an all-round gopher. And Yasha, the other guy on the screen up with my co-director, he couldn't be here today. The film came from an article he wrote called A Journey Through Oligarch Valley, for a publication, very good publication back in the day called MNFF Corp. So I was kind of like taken by the idea that these pistachio farmers were lobbying for war with Iran. The idea that there was a snack food in there with the oil industry and, what are the weapons companies just seemed like an absurd idea to me. So yeah, that was the germination of it.
So the idea that it was contributing to international political tension and conflict was your initial motivation.
Initially, that's what caught me, and we sort of actually made a short where we tried to put together that idea, and we realized very quickly it was going to be kind of like a YouTube conspiracy documentary because it was just going to be graphics and voiceover, and it wasn't going to be anything we could really film. It's a very opaque world. We never really managed to penetrate the world of lobbying. But as we were just doing some exploratory trips out into California, we realized, the other big side of the story is obviously the water privatization, and it's kind of like a real life Chinatown. There's a water heist going on. There's these big, powerful interests sort of acting behind the scenes to manipulate the narrative around how they're draining the water for this business. And it's called the Wonderful Company, so we're like, okay, that's our new framework. It's going to be, sort of a real life Chinatown in the modern era.
Yeah. Has anybody here ever had any pomegranate juice?
Yes.
Yes. Has anybody eaten any of these pistachios?
Yes.
How about Fuji water?
No more.
Anyway, so the genesis of the film was to essentially take a stand, make a position, make an argument, and expose, in this case, a corruption that you felt existed.
Yeah, I think so. And I mean, it's also, there's a lot of elements to the story that are just weird and entertaining, because of the Resnicks are such odd characters with their background. So, yeah, I don't know. It's documentary. I know this is a dark film. It's, by genre, it's supposed to be. It's neo-noir, Chinatown,
It's a documentary exposition of corruption.
Chinatown,
Right. It's not about the growing practices of pistachios out in the fresh earth.
No, but I know more about that now than I thought I would.
Somebody told me it takes 20 gallons to make a single almond. Is that true? No.
Yeah, I mean, both almonds and pistachios. I think it's 1,000 gallons for a pound, so I don't know. I don't know if I want to do the math on that, but that's the statistic I can remember offhand. Yeah. It's a lot.
Yeah. Of course, one of the interesting elements too, Linda Resnick, and you mention it in the film, I found out about this before I saw the film, is actually the person who Xeroxed the Pentagon Papers.
Yeah.
Everybody knows about the Pentagon Papers. Daniel Ellsberg released like 40,000 pages of classified documents related to the Vietnam War that exposed a lot of, basically corruption. And she Xeroxed, and so now they're trying to establish an endowment down there, and they asked her for contribution, and she hasn't given it. But
it's funny. I'm surprised actually because she still has. I don't think Daniel Ellsberg, but one of the other guys. She was going out with the other Daniel Ellsberg,
Tony Russo.
Tony Russo. Tony Russo. Yeah, so she was dating that guy. Just those 70s. They were young, they were around. He was like they were at Rand, working at Rand or something like that.
That's right, Rand Corporation.
And so she was dating him. I guess they were cool dudes or something.
Okay.
And she had a marketing agency, so they Xeroxed it. I think she was actually a bit more freaked out in reality about the feds coming to get her and wanted to distance herself from it. She sort of said, oh, they paid me to use the copier. But now she loves telling it because it's a great story, and obviously they've got this kind of like liberal image and a do-gooder image, which they dress themselves up as, and in a way, given them a free pass in California. Because,
So they contribute to progressive causes.
like socially liberal, like economically oligarch is how I describe them.
Mhm.
And right wing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Cover the earth.
Very apolitical. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, ultimately they give money to everybody. They'll just give money to Republicans. They just want, like any big business, they want to have the air as a stake when they need it.
Are they aware of the film?
I mean, we haven't had an official. They know it's happening. After we filmed in their park and we got kicked out, somebody from the company at least emailed Rosanna to ask about us, and she sort of told them to go to hell. But I mean, we've never had any engagement with them. We tried, obviously. We tried to get them to talk to us or even give us any kind of statement. So we assumed that. Well, I've got one funny story. So Yasha, the co-director, when we were still trying to get this film out there and just basically just get it to penetrate the sort of mind of the world. Sorry, that's bad phrasing, but he went and did some protests at some of the galleries that they donate to. So he waved a placard around saying they were climate criminals. At the Hammer Museum, at the LATMA, talking about the biggest donors, because the rest like $30 million, $20 million each of these organizations. And that, I think, upset the organizer, the director of the museum, because they didn't like seeing their big donor with the name on the on the wall, dragged through the mud like this. So then we got a call from the New York Times, and they said that they were going to be doing a story about the wonderful company and the protests. And we're like, yeah, it's interesting. Something about it doesn't seem maybe as promising as it could be, but we'll send them some clips from the film, we'll give them some context. So they talked to Rosanna, they talked to some different people. But what came out was basically a public relations piece for the wonderful company. So they went to the Lost Hills, they took photos of Linda at the charter school. So they sent a photographer out with Linda and did shoots with her, and wrote a very glowing thing about the company and mentioned that there was a film and mentioned some minor criticisms of the company, and then followed it up with a quote from Linda dismissing them. It was a culture reporter from the New York Times. It wasn't an investigative reporter, but it wasn't, I feel, the New York Times' best moment.
I mean, are they sort of playing by the rules as they currently exist in terms of business and agriculture and the environment?
I mean, I think that was their defense, in the New York Times, is that, but I think they even said that, or maybe the governor, they had big politicians in this piece, these are the rules, they played by the rules and they've won, so this is the framework, basically, yeah, it's winner takes all. If you can, get the market, you get the money, you get the power, and you can
Right.
you can do what they're doing, and that's the system.
So it raises those additional larger questions then.
Exactly, yeah, I think for us, the film isn't about, is it ethical to eat pistachios, or maybe you need to go and buy a different brand or something. It's about, obviously, the bigger system, that we reappropriated the blob, which used to be kind of a communist, metaphor, into, capitalist metaphor, this market-driven mentality, where it's just, the market is basically the guiding force for our society, and, that is insanity, it's just swallowing everything, it's like the paperclip machine factory, that just destroys everything for money.
So there's sort of an insinuation, we're going to open it up in just a second, that because of the amount of water that is being required for the pistachios, that it actually destabilizes the water table, and that combined with the production of oil and gas close by actually introduces those elements additionally into the contamination. Is that right, or did I misread that?
Yeah, I mean, firstly, the amount of water that's being drained out of the Central Valley is the largest man-made modification to the surface of the Earth. So it has sunk so much in some parts of the valley that, if you measure it from space, this is our largest, performance art piece or something, sculpture or whatever you want to call it. And then the other side of it is that as you drain water out of the aquifers, any kind of naturally occurring contaminants become more concentrated. So arsenic, salt, various things like that also build up, nitrates, they become more concentrated. And then of course, you have the oil industry pumping oil out, and as they do that, they end up with water. There's a lot of other contaminants part of that process, and they just end up with this residue that's very expensive for them to deal with. They're supposed to actually put it back in the wells. They generally don't want to pay the tab for that. So then they just sort of dump it, and let it leach back into and contaminate the groundwater in places, or
Yeah. How's the water in Middlebury? Yes. Okay, let's have a couple questions. I have some more I'd like to ask, but Juliana, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much. What I was thinking about was also mega farming and how it ruins the land, from cattle to pigs to, the diversity of plants, like.
Mega farming, cattle, pigs, diversity of plants,
Yeah.
how it's destructive to
Yeah,
those.
so how that, also about the land being destroyed.
Mhm.
And I also hoped you could come to Austin and do one on Elon Musk, because he's created a town right outside Austin. And I'm sure there's lots of corruption going on there. So anyway, but just curious about that issue of dead zones in land where these huge farms, one crop, right?
oh yeah.
Well,
I mean, yeah, I guess industrial farming is another thing that's at the core of this movie. People will tell you, well, this is actually the most efficient way to feed people, and these people know what they're doing. They're not wasting any water. They're growing in the optimal environment. So this is actually the right way to do things. I'll even see people on the left making that argument, the sort of abundance types or, very technologically driven types. But yeah, I mean, as soon as you drive through that place, it's obvious something's wrong. I mean, you can drive around. We came driving today, and around Vermont. It's kind of nice. They're growing food around here. It's a pleasant environment. There's some trees. There's birds. There's insects. Whereas, out there, it's
we
an
could use a
outdoor
few,
factory.
we don't need quite as many insects.
A few less mosquitoes. Yeah, well, get the corporate farming in. They'll
Let's
take
get
care
rid
of
of the
it.
ticks.
Um,
Maybe the Resnicks could do that for us.
yeah,
Wipe out the ticks.
they've sued insects before. So.
Yeah. Now, one of the things, I mean, in Vermont, Lake Champlain is a great natural resource. It's also a source of water for drinking, at least in Burlington. What else? Is there any other place that uses Lake Champlain water for drinking? Oh,
All of
Plattsburgh,
counties.
all of Chittenden County, all of Addison County draws from Lake Champlain.
Yeah.
Shoreham. Well, now here's a case, what?
Communities along the lake use it.
All the communities along the
Middle
lake.
Lake does
Yeah, well, it's quite contaminated. And the government has invested tens and tens of billions of dollars to clean up Lake Champlain, and it just isn't happening. And which raises an additional question, which is that in some cases, contamination like this really can't be reversed, at least given the technology that we currently have. I mean, I remember talking to Patrick Leahy about this, who led the fight, and because of his seniority in the Senate, was able to get a lot of money to clean up Lake Champlain, and it just didn't happen. And then you get into the contradiction that one of the big contaminants is farm runoff, and especially with heavy rains. And so it is again linked to a way of farming that in this case is not huge industrial farming, but is, a conventional farming approach. It's not, and I don't even know that whether organic farms would reduce this same problem, but that is one of the problems with not being cognizant in the first place about what these impacts will be.
Yeah, I mean, I'm from New Zealand, so I mean, we have a very different agricultural environment over there, and we have agriculture is a major industry. So I mean, similarly, we have problems with river contamination, livestock, and so on. So they have some efforts over there where they would plant, if you plant, swampy kind of flaxes and things like that along the edges that can soak out some of the contaminants.
Right.
But of course,
Sure.
the industry is horribly against it. The industry's up in arms about any centralized government effort to.
Right. Rebalancing agriculture. In other words, when you see an agricultural contaminant, to look for a natural counteraction to that. I mean, apparently for ticks you need guinea hens, right? For example, or whatever. And I had some other questions here. Yes, right here.
I was a little thrown off. What period of time were you filming?
That's the question I did not want to answer. We took a long time. This film came together a long time. So we started in 2015. We filmed over maybe the course of 5 years, and it took us about 4 or 5 years to finish it, just to put the whole story together. So yeah, it was California, Was it just at the end of like what was considered one of the worst drought periods in California's history, around 2015, and then 2016? So it was like kind of, I guess Obama was still president for some of the time, you know, and then we were just going with the first Trump presidency.
Hi. Something that I was really interested in the film was the testimonies that you were actually able to get from the people who were living in those towns that were really affected, whether they had the corrosive water or didn't have access to water at all. And there's one moment that really struck me. I think, I forget which town, but Yasha asked why more people aren't speaking out against it, and one of them said it's because we're afraid. And I was kind of more interested in that dynamic that you had. You know, you talked a lot, both in the film and here, about struggling to get access to the residents and these hyper-billionaires, but did you have trouble? It seemed like a lot of people in the film were really eager to talk about these issues, but did you also face like a lot of issues with people being hesitant? Were there credible threats about retaliation or some sort of consequences for speaking out?
I mean, I think like the first thing that was important was time. You know, like we first arrived in Porterville and we didn't really know where things were happening either. And you know, that was the town with the water and the people that were, you know, giving the story about the local businessmen. And we, you know, we saw a lot of pieces. They kind of helicopter journalism. They come in, they've got their byline. You know, the taps have gone dry, people are suffering. They get the story. But we spent a couple of weeks there, you know, and just as we just kind of like ground our way around town, trying to like talk to different people, like the local newspaper guy, whatever. Some people just kind of came out of the woodwork. You know, they'd see us with a camera, approach us. Because that's one reality of documentary filmmaking. It's quite hard to get people that are reluctant to speak on camera. So you do end up with people that are like kind of more gravitated towards being in film. You know, which some of those people like Donna, who was delivering the water. I mean, if you look back around that time, there was a lot of media coverage of her. And same for Tom and Rosanna. They're both people that are like kind of like known people that speak out around you know, California around these issues. But then of course, yeah, we just randomly occasionally run into somebody who wanted to talk about something, and you know, we pulled it all together. In terms of like credible threats, I mean, you know, I don't know what those guys thought was going to happen to them. Maybe they wouldn't get hired, you know. I don't think it was like, you know, anyone going around to maybe call ICE or something, I don't know. But like, you know, the guy, Mitch, was kind of a, you know, he's kind of a nice guy. You can see how he'd smooth talked his way through everything. But then at the same time, you know, he was just a barefaced liar and, you know, would clearly, you know, hit Rod. You know, Rod did have his problems, but he'd really pushed Rod to the edge of that community, you know, pushed him off the edge, I'd say.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be interested to hear anybody's comments also about what could be done. Having seen a film like this, what would anyone imagine doing to respond to it? But yes, other questions are fine. Yes. Yes, you.
Did you try to interview Colbert, or did you try any ambush journalism on the Resnicks?
And Colbert, yeah, or the Resnicks.
Yeah, did you try to ambush them someplace in a parking lot somewhere where you knew it would be? Or, you know, why not interview Colbert? He was
Maybe that's why CBS dropped the show.
Yeah, I know that, but I'd like to know why you didn't give it a try, if you did.
It's a good question. I mean, Colbert, it didn't think it occurred to us to go to him. I mean, I don't know what he would say about them. I'd imagine he'd probably be defensive of them somewhat, or maybe try to distance himself.
Would have been great for
I don't
30
think he'd talk
seconds.
to us, to be honest. You know, we're not big enough a deal. But we tried with the Resnicks. I mean, we were like looking at different things. We were like looking at when they were speaking at the Aspen Institute. We were like, we had the tail number of their plane. We were like, okay, maybe we can get him when he flies into Santa Monica Airport. You know, we hung out around the house a little bit, but you know, like, I know there's a version of this film where like we get them, you know, and or like where, you know, let the Michael Moore, you know, finally get the CEO to interview you, and that's like a more satisfying movie in a way. But the reality is that none of these people are accountable. None of them are available. So, you know, okay, yeah, I agree. It would have been cool if we could have got them somehow.
That's what I was waiting for at the end.
Work harder or be more creative about it, but you know, there's another reality that it does show, which is the real reality, which is just that people like the Resnicks control huge amounts of resources, and there's absolutely no way to talk to them if they don't think it's going to be in their interest.
So this is in the tradition of Michael Moore's sort of muckraking.
Yeah, you know, I like, you know, the early Michael Moore stuff. It's great, you know, of course.
Yeah.
Just in February of this year, Trump released 2 dams,
Mm-hmm.
you know, the water in from the Central Valley. And so, did you follow that story? And also, could you give more background to it? Because it's owned or controlled by Republicans. And he wanted to showcase that if that water was released, the LA wildfire would not have happened, right?
Oh,
Yeah, everybody's aware of this, that Trump ordered the release of water from Northern California. Yeah.
Central Valley.
2 dams, Central Valley, 2 dams.
I think I remember his tweet, and he was like, "We're sending in the army to like free the water," and I was like, "Yeah, the Army Corps of Engineers." It's like the engineering wing of the army. I guess it still makes a good tweet. But so I mean, Trump, Ted Cruz, these people obviously engage in the water debate, and they're very much, forget the tiny fish. They've got a talking point. That the environmentalists want to save, like a 2-inch fish, and humans are going to starve because of the 2-inch fish. The 2-inch fish is just one indicator species, of a big ecological collapse that happens to be, how they're stopping things. But yeah, I mean, people in the actual water world, because he was releasing it at the wrong time. He was releasing it at not even the right time that they even need the water. So he was basically wasting the water. So I think within the industry, they were like, okay, this is an interesting show. You come in and demonstrated that you can release the water, but can you not release it until maybe later in the year?
I'm curious, you weren't able to get the gotcha, but in a lot of ways, in particular, Linda Resnick gave you a lot of gotchas with these various marketing things she did. I don't know at what point in the evolution of the movie you guys realized how much of a focus the Resnicks might need to be. But I'm curious, when you came across what you used as kind of the capstone moment of her for those last few in between the credits shots, like was it right from the start you knew that was going to be part of it, or did you stumble across it at some point while making your movie, your documentary?
No, I mean, we knew the Resnicks were going to be part of the story, and we did want to try and actually get them to come on camera somehow. Didn't, but they do have a very large public persona. Some people said, is it a gotcha? Have we just like found the worst clips? And I'd say that no, it's very representative. They actually repeat the same points over and over. So that clip from Linda was during COVID. So it's kind of like, I guess maybe we're all losing our minds a little bit, but yeah, that didn't turn up until pretty late in the process. Because we cycled through different possibilities for the ending. But yeah, we wanted to leave you with a heartwarming message from us.
Well done.
Nicole?
Yeah, I'm wondering about your strategy for distribution of the film, because like particularly with consideration for like legal concerns, because I'm sure as the film gains more traction, it's maybe also you and the film are potentially more vulnerable to like pushback from the Resnicks or the Wonderful Company.
Yeah, so through the festival kind of release process, we no distributors would touch the movie for a long time. We hadn't had much luck, and I think really when the fires in LA happened, there was a huge amount of interest around the Resnicks, and people started kind of blaming them for the fires because people kind of made this connection with the water. Them using the water and then there not being enough water to put out the fires, which was maybe not the actually correct connection, but people were suddenly very interested in the Resnicks. So we put up an indie streaming release and got quite a lot of views on that. And I'm not sure if it was related, we had a distributor approach us. So it's out now, it's a press release for it. Watermelon Pictures, so a kind of an activist, more politically oriented distributor has picked up the film. I'll say we had to get errors and omissions insurance, so we had to go through the process of clearing the film with lawyers. It was really hard.
But you've done it?
Yeah, we did it. Yeah, we got it.
That would be the issue with the distributor, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we over here did a lot of work to clear. We ticked our boxes.
Yeah.
But basically, the insurance companies were still incredibly paranoid because even when we have a lawyer signing off that there's no defamation, there's no copyright infringement, they're just like, well, they could still just sue you, in spite of that. So yeah, we had a hard time getting insurance. Yeah, would be the short answer.
People are probably aware of that. I mean, that any documentary film or even a dramatic film needs what's called errors and omissions insurance before they can be released, so that the distributor is freed from liability and that you're covered in case of a lawsuit for any reason at all. And so that can be very difficult, and obviously was, but you got it, so that's
It's
huge.
a bad month.
Yeah. So there are other questions, comments? Yes.
Yeah, I have a comment. You had asked about, well, what can we do? And when we first came into this room, and people were sheepishly raising their hand, yes, I drink palm and I eat pistachios. I am aware of, the Center for Food Safety was in the film.
The Center for Food Safety.
And they're quite a reputable firm that works with consumers, put pressure on corporations.
Mm-hmm.
I'm also aware of an investor initiative that's beginning to form around targeting retailers like Target and Costco who carry these brands, and just to get a conversation going around, are you aware of the human rights risks in their supply chain of carrying these brands, and what can you do to put pressure? So I'm wondering if you have any comments around distribution and kind of elevating the environmental justice piece that came out.
So are you imagining an impact campaign that would actually look at follow-up and actions people could take?
Yeah, that's a good question. We started doing a few protests, to kind of just maybe agitate around the issue with the Resnicks and try and put that into their world and make them uncomfortable. I don't know. I'm in terms of political solutions, I don't know the answer, to be honest. I think people need to obviously have an acknowledgement, that there's something insane about the way we're living, overconsumption, overdevelopment. And I don't even know if putting pressure on one brand is really enough. So I don't know, I'm sorry, it's a film noir, it's dark. We don't have the answers. But
it's a platform for discussion. It's a great
Yeah.
to bring.
And one of the issues is, that these, basically, if you want pomegranate juice, this is the only brand that is sort of prominent and available, but you could probably find another. And pistachios, if you go to a health food store, you would find that you would not find these pistachios, I would think, but what you would find, I don't know. As you say, it's a fairly rare product.
Also, I think people can eat pistachios, they're nice, but the problem is there's just too many. It's we're not supposed to be shoveling them into our faces, in industrial quantities. So I think in California, if you took 20% of the acreage out of production, basically most of the ecological problems would go away. It wouldn't be perfect, but species could come back, some rivers could be restored. A lot of the land that's being farmed isn't even good land for farming. It's contaminated. The reason they were able to get it late, it's because no one wanted to farm it. It was oil land. So these big corporates have just come in and they've got the political power to, farm, and command the resources in a very unsustainable and very, bad way for the environment. And of course they're a wonderful company. So I think even just having people or a political will to be we can curb industrial development. We can force some of these farms to retire, and even within the industry, the situation is so bleak that they know that they're actually destroying the water infrastructure by overpumping. So things are bad when the industry is leading groundwater management initiative legislation, and that's what they have in California. There's a new legislation to reduce the amount of water they're pumping out because all the aquifers are cracking, and the water's not going to run anymore because it all needs to run based on the ground level. But if it sinks, everything, the bridges are just kind of now under in the canals. But of course, they also can't regulate themselves, and they had a 10-year time frame to become compliant, with more sustainable groundwater, and I'm sure that'll be extended, so.
Of course, industrial agriculture also affects Vermont. The fact that large dairy farms exist out west means that Vermont dairy farms, small dairy farms, aren't really viable, for one thing. And also large dairy farms can also survive on lower priced milk, whereas small farms need, frankly, higher priced milk. And these are problems that have sort of left. I mean, I live in a town that had 12 working dairy farms 10 years ago and has none today. And it really is, it has a cultural impact as well as an economic impact. So these are questions. I mean, of course, you have a food co-op in Middlebury and a number of towns that are sort of based on the idea of trying to source food from more local sources and to support local growers and all the rest. I mean, in terms of responses, that's another way that people can respond, is making very conscious choices in terms of how their food is sourced. I mean, you go to the Hanover Co-op, I mean, they tell you that, this salmon came from the frigid waters of Iceland and had 3 weeks vacation every year, and was paid minimum wage. And anyway, it's obviously a big issue, industrial agriculture, in the same way that our towns have been really sort of gutted by big internet retail. I mean, it's like these are entities that provide vitality to our own communities, and so what we're looking at in the film in some ways is something almost alien. I mean, it's almost from another planet, the scale of agriculture and the impact and the reduction of water, which is so essential. And we know the Southwest is hugely threatened with water shortage at this point. So these are really questions that have to be taken into account.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of like the neoliberal economy. We basically sacrificed politics for market forces, and for your small local farmers, for the ravages of the market, they don't work anymore, because you can get it for like
Everything's about
cheaper,
price.
everything's about price, and no consumer is going to knowingly, I mean, some people do, but it's not really going to work, no consumers, everyone's got not enough money, so everyone's going to buy the cheap stuff, so it's a downward spiral,
Although you could modify your consumption. I mean, that's one way to respond. But obviously it would require very extensive effort, and America is the world's capital of individualism in any way. I was looking at figures the other day of per capita drug addiction in the world. I don't know, just as one signifier of a nation's health. It's huge. In the United States, it's like 3,500 per 100,000. Even the other industrial countries are like 1,000, 1,050. It's really just like triple. I mean, China is like 700 out of 100,000. And nobody's even close to the level of drug addiction in this country. And so should that not pose certain questions about quality of life and just what it is about the culture that creates these, discrepancies? Obviously being a sign of health, and how important is our collective health, apart from our individual health. And these become issues. And obviously water, there are places that are fighting for water. I mean, people argue that the wars in Syria are motivated by the fact that farmers didn't have access to water, moved in large numbers to the cities, created instability, weren't able to make livings and things like that. Any time there are these disruptions, there are ripple effects. Other questions? Yes, right here and then over there.
Can we send this movie? I mean, how can we tell people they should watch this movie?
Yeah, it's very close to being released on TVOD, so
On what?
it'll be on Apple TV and Amazon. You better pay $6.99 or something, or it'll get cheaper over time, I guess. But I think the release date isn't set yet, but sometime in the fall this year. Yeah.
Perfect.
We're at the very end of our festival run, like literally, the very end.
This could be it.
We don't
This is
like
it. This is it.
Over here, yes, somebody have a question?
I actually have the exact same question.
Exact same question.
Because I don't have subscription services like that. Do you have a standalone version that you also sell?
Well, you can go to Watermelon Plus. So the distributors have their own streaming platform now. So if you want to buy it not off Apple or Amazon, you can buy it off of Watermelons once it's out, in a couple of months' time.
Okay, thank you.
Well, you've made a movie with stimulating conversation and lots of reflection, so